I swear I don't have a problem. Video games. Who needs them? Fallout New Vegas may be one of the best games ever made, but it doesn't come with 24 wall damage indicators, so can it really call itself that? I've always had a fascination with tabletop games, even if my opportunities to play them have been lacking. I've played 4 Souls maybe 4 times with a total of 2 different people, Catan has never seen more than 3 at a table, and Back to the Future Dice Through Time is a load-bearing box at the present moment. So really what does it for me is seeing the fun others have playing those games, and hoping I get to one day spread that fun. When most people's minds jump to board games, they may think of Risk or Operation. I think nowadays they might think more stuff like Cards Against Humanity and Apples to Apples. But there's one game that's somehow stood the test of time. Monopoly. Monopoly was originally a socialist teaching tool about the strain landlords place on their tenants. The guy who pitched the game to Parker Brothers, Charles Darrow, only had the board and required pieces for one of the game's 2 modes, the Monopolist Rule Set. Elizabeth Maggie, the original creator of the Landlord's game, later Monopoly, also had an Anti-Monopolist Rule Set, which all rents were paid to a general pool that's then split between all players. Those rules have been lost to time, and only the Monopolist rules remain, in which the goal is to crush all players remorselessly. Yay, capitalism. Over the last 90 years, Monopoly has gotten a ton of variations from just name changes for the tiles to straight up total conversions. Lord of the Rings Monopoly has a ring, and it travels around the board every time you roll a 1. When it makes it to the end of the board, the game ends, and you total up the sum of your riches. Gamer Monopoly includes just Mario characters, and not like, I don't know, Ghost Runner and Deep Rock Galactic or anything. But each character has special power-ups they get to use on certain rolls, giving the drawn-out, tiresome game an air of strategy. And that created a whole slew of spin-off gamer titles, most of them Mario, one of them Sonic, all of them pointless, but none more pointless than Monopoly Arcade Pac-Man. This might just be the single most agonizing, disheartening, irrelevant rendition of the deregulation simulator on the market. So, unfolding the board, this is tiny. 16 spaces, half the size of a regulation Monopoly board, and all of them are just level 1, level 2, level 3. I get it's Pac-Man and the original arcade game has no unique locales, but there are 21 other Pac-Man maze games. These could have been the likes of Pac-Man Plus, Pac and Pal, Pac-Mania, Pac-Man Versus, Championship Edition, Pac-Man 256, or maybe they could have been, I don't know, these 16 bonus fruits from Super Pac-Man, or the different maze types and pack arrangement. But sure, it's just numbers. So, this is a 4-player game. Do we get to play as the different ghosts? I mean, there were 4 in the original Pac-Man, and they added a bunch over time. You know, Inky, Pinky, Blinky, Clyde, Sue, Common, Kinky. That is indeed a ghost name. I did not make that up. These are just 4 Pac-Men. They're not even differently colored Pac-Men? Sure, the base is blue or pink or orange or red. They are the colors of the original ghosts, but they're not the ghosts themselves. Alright, dish out some money and... What is this? It's a coin, but it's not money. What do we... Oh. Okay. Say hello to every single remaining problem with Monopoly Arcade Pac-Man. This arcade machine lookalike is our electronic banker, but an electronic banker it is not. See, in the 2006 release of electronic banking, the first electronic banking, the banker swipes the player's card, they subtract the value a property is worth, and they hand the deed back to the first player. Ditto rents, and if they win money, they press a plus button, add in the total. It's effectively a calculator, but that's fine. In Ultimate Electronic Monopoly, the deeds had barcodes on them that you'd scan to collect properties. That was that. No pressing buttons. Simply swipe your player card, press a button, you do press a button, but then you swipe the deed, and it reads the barcode, and voila, it's yours now. Take it. Run. Be free. Monopoly Arcade takes us a step further by simplifying the banking system again. See, say I land on level 12, and I want to buy it. I have to insert my coin, hit plus, and then slowly navigate Pac-Man over to the spot I landed on, and then hit the button. Ditto paying rent, ditto auctions. Oh, and if you own a pair of properties, the rent doubles. There's no houses, there's no hotels, there's nothing of that kind. Just buy both properties. In fact, the game suddenly comes to an end the moment every last property's been purchased, kind of like Super Electronic Banking. This means that if you're pretty much in the lead and there's a bunch of cheap properties left on the board, you really don't have any incentive to buy them. You just keep doing laps around the board and pass and go. Speaking of pass and go, when you pass go, you get to play a round of Pac-Man on the little machine. Kind of. Press left on the joystick and then slap that there button, and now you have 15 whole seconds to collect as many dots as possible. That would be simple enough, but this thing controls bad. Some movements just don't get accepted, and on one hand, it's easy to make it through the 15 seconds without incident, and typically end up somewhere north of 200 points for your troubles. But at the same time, it's also really easy for your adventure to end in seconds, earning you like 10 points. Looking at the board, we have a few spaces that inspire a bit of fear. The bonus fruit spaces are called power-up spaces. Get it together, fellas. That allow you to jump to any property space leading up to the next bonus fruit, allowing you to leap over other player spaces with ease or clean up decent chunks of the map. Mazes let you wrap around the board, making it stupidly easy to do laps on the board and rack up round after round of Pac-Man. And, So thievery's on the board. To get into Monopoly Arcade Pac-Man's headspace, I actually engaged in a little bit of power pellet play myself. See, I went and I stole one of the big concrete orbs from in front of Target. It's chilling in the backyard right now. Don't tell the cops. Land here, decide what space you want, navigate over to it on the display, really slowly, this is the least helpful way to navigate, and bam! You've done a theft. You can't take from a completed set, so if you have one high value space, it's best to go after the other to keep both safe. Of course, it's most advantageous to just take the highest level property a player owns without its partner, as, again, as soon as all 16 properties are claimed, the game suddenly ends. Oh, and because the arcade machine keeps such close tabs on who owns what, don't expect to be able to make trades with your other players. The rules actually forbid trading at properties, and there is no easy way to even begin exchanging points. So don't even think about it. If you're out of money, you trade in your properties for funds. If you're out of both, you aren't even allowed to declare bankruptcy and walk away. You have to keep circling the board until you catch a lucky break and pass go. And you better hope that you have a good run. The controls work in your favor, and you better hope nobody tries to take those points away from you. Like the ghost. There is one ghost in Monopoly Pac-Man. Inky moves around the board with each roll of the blue ghost die. I at least assume this is Inky. And if he lands on the same space as you, or vice versa, you lose 20 points. Early game, you only have 100 to work with, and you're kind of cramped around the same few spaces, so it's easy to lose most or all of your points very early on. But after that, Inky kind of just becomes a nuisance, taking tiny bits of your funds every time you pass each other. Inky offers no other interesting play to the game by existing, it's just a point sink. Again, let's compare this to the Ring from Lord of the Rings Monopoly. Every time you roll a 1, it moves a space around the board. You land on an unowned property with it, you get it for free. If you land on someone else's space with it, their rent is doubled. When it makes it to the last space on the board, Mount Doom, the game suddenly ends and all players add up the sums of their riches. No more Monopoly for you. You're free. This gives the set a very strong tie to the source material, even in just its rules. It didn't need a whole bunch of set dressing to make this gimmick both fun to use and fitting with the world. If it was just Monopoly with the regular spaces, no Shire, no Mount Doom, no Mordor, I've never seen a Lord of the Rings thing, those are the only 3 places I know. If it was just regular Monopoly with a ring and when it reached the end, the game was over, people would already be saying, this feels like Lord of the Rings. It didn't need the Lord of the Rings theming, it just worked. Monopoly Arcade has just the barest connections to the game in question, and they're all surface-level observations. It feels like it was made by someone completely apathetic to the legacy Pac-Man's had. The character is 40 years old, he's got tons of games, is a recognized mascot the world over, and is the poster child for good, clean arcade fun, even to this day, in an age where the arcade is losing relevance. Pac-Man deserves so much more than just a Monopoly Junior electronic banking game with rules so watered down it makes cheap beer look like top-shelf whiskey. So what's wrong with this game? You would have an easier time explaining what's right with the game. It's got Pac-Man. It plays the sounds. It's got the orange. So first off, this arcade has the build quality of a cheap Tiger Electronics game. Tiny Arcade's Pac-Man is $20, but it's a fully fledged version of Pac-Man in full color with really playable controls. It wouldn't be out of the question to make a sort of NES on a chip sort of deal for the Monopoly Arcade. Put a basic GUI in it to do trades and buy properties. And then add a button and a stick. And then you can add, a short, sweet game of Pac-Man or whatever game you make a Monopoly Arcade of after this in full color and at a reasonable frame rate. Then you can use that same GUI and basic assets to make more Monopoly arcades, and you already have a really good arcade machine as a basis. Even if they just upped the build quality in this cabinet, that would go a long way. The plastic is cheap and creaky, light bleeds through it super easily, the sides go undecorated. It doesn't even look like a Pac-Man cabinet, it's shaped like an ATM. Secondly, the electronic banking just gives this game so much less flexibility compared to even other electronic banking versions. Navigating its menus is slow, its screen is muddy, the sound is always on and always at full volume. You have to screw the batteries in, and there's a good chance this will sit in a closet for a while between plays. So it will quickly become a chemical weapon of corroded acid caked everywhere. Just give it a plastic tab or two to hold the battery door closed, give it some decals on the side and front, maybe make it a full color screen or give it a more responsive control stick. Or consider just giving players proper money in deeds. But when they pass go, they play a round of Pac-Man to determine how much money they earn. That way players can still trade and exchange as needed while keeping your fun arcade gimmick. And this board? Give it a makeover. Pac-Man has a rich history. Embrace it. Make our 4 characters Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Miru from Pac-and-Pal, and the Mother Fairy from Pac-Land. Make the properties related to the various games throughout Pac-Man history, like Block City or Pac-Man Park from Pac-Mania, the Forest from Pac-Land, and make the final property the original Labyrinth from the 1980 classic. Do we need the ghost? No, we don't need the ghost. It's more of a problem in the first 10 minutes than the entire rest of the game. And also, there's no chance cards or community chest, and it kind of feels like Monopoly when you have those, and it doesn't feel like Monopoly when you don't. So let's replace the ghost, power pellets, and bonus fruit with a deck of maze cards that could either be collecting bonus points from fruit, they could be nothing, or they could be ghosts that force you to skip turns, go to jail, or pay back sums of money. These are just a few suggestions because in its current state, this appeals to nobody. Pac-Man fans only have tiny smidgens of fan service to look forward to, table scraps that make Smash Brothers look like Golden Corral by comparison, and Monopoly fans won't like the gimped rules and frustrating limitations. If you want a Pac-Man themed Monopoly experience everyone can enjoy, at least as much as you can enjoy a Monopoly experience, get one of the tiny arcades, have people who pass go play around, and then hand them money corresponding to the points they earned on their first life. It'll go over smoother than this game did. So with watered down rules that don't appeal to Monopoly fans and no real fan service for Pac-Man fans, this game really doesn't have an audience. It's a shame. I think the idea is decent. I won't call it great, but I will call it decent. I really hope it's just a stumbling block and growing pains for the Monopoly arcade line because it has potential. And this is a fun way to remix the greatest board game ever made. I'm sorry, could you imagine if anybody ever had that opinion? No, Monopoly sucks. It's all about that Catan, baby! I got the frickin'... If you like this video and you'd like to see more, I'd recommend subscribing. Patreon and social media links are in the description.